Hello, welcome to another edition of Youth United, Working for a Better Future, where we hear from important and interesting people shaping the lives of youth. I'm your host, Maya Palazzo Martinez, and today we'll discuss the efforts to increase the number of women in leadership positions and the work of the Center of Women in Government and a Civil Society to build leadership skills in women, including young women. Our guest today is Dr. Dina Refki. She's the director of the Center of Women in Government and Civil Society at the University in Albany. Dr. Refki grew up in Egypt and attended college in Cairo and in the United States, earning her doctorate in Humanic Studies from the University at Albany. In addition to promoting policies and programs that are culturally and linguistically sensitive to immigrant women, Refki's primary goals for the center include preserving the center's national prominence as a producer of cutting-edge research and policy analysis on women, and expanding women's leadership development to the pre-college, undergraduate, and executive levels. So welcome, Dr. Refki. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we can jump right into it and get started. Can you tell us more about your experience in Egypt and how you have become so focused on women and leadership issues?
Yep, that's a great question. Growing up in Egypt, really, you are faced with a very patriarchal society. The norms and values that I had within my household, within the household, were very different from the norms and values in the outside society. So there were really disparities. You go out of the door, and there are a completely different landscape, and that disparities or those differences between inside the home and outside the home really ignited this passion or this awareness and consciousness that women are far behind in terms of achieving this elusive dream of equality.
I see. And so as you read like national and international headlines on the many struggles by women, what concerns you the most?
About international women's rights or domestically?
Just more internationally.
Internationally, really the problem is that there are disparities among countries. There are countries that have made a lot of strides along the continuum of women's rights, and there are countries who still lag far behind in terms of public policy that promote women's rights, as well as practices and cultural traditions that are harmful for women on the ground. And in much more developed countries where the public policy framework has advanced to a level where there are at least equality measures on the books and in the public policy world, there's still a lot of disparities and a lot of gendered practices on the ground. And the problem is, or the challenge becomes, that they are very unconscious. It's what we call the unconscious bias, and the fact that they are unconscious make them really harder to tackle, not easier to tackle. We also are concerned about younger generations, and I'm really thrilled that you invited us to come to this show. Younger generations who have not experienced the women's movement and have not been socialized to the disparities that women face in society tend to buy in the myth that we are in a post-feminist era, that really women have achieved full equality and there's no more need for struggle to advance women's position anymore. So buying into that myth really disadvantage women themselves, because when they hit this glass ceiling, when they hit the concrete ceiling, they tend to blame themselves and not the structured inequalities that are embedded in the system. So we really are concerned about that, and our center strives to raise awareness about these disparities. And all you have to do is look at the numbers, and the numbers tell a different story than that we are still in. We still very much need feminism, and we still very much need to work more on advancing women's rights.
Absolutely. And when you come to think about it, a lot of young people like my age, we don't really talk about, women are so discriminated.
Right.
So while women in the United States enjoy like a greater degree of freedoms than most other parts of the world, there's still a lot of pervasive problems: wage discrimination, age discrimination. Is your view, in your view, are these problems solvable?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All you have to do is look at history and look how far we have become, how many strides we have made as women, not only in labor force participation, but in education. Our numbers now are equal to men. We are participating in the labor force in this country and getting degrees at the same rate, and even sometimes more than men in higher education. So we've made a lot of strides. There are a few areas that still need to be, are the last frontiers, so to speak, of women's rights in regards to women's leadership, violence against women, health-related disparities, and economic security. So and these are the areas that our Center for Women in Government and Civil Society focus on, because these are where disparities still exist, and the numbers still tell us that there are still problems, that women are disproportionately affected by these problems.
I actually recently read a news article, and it said at the current rate of growth, it's going to take just American women 500 years to reach the equity in the number of elected positions that are held by men right now. Mm-hmm. And since 1917, the first woman to serve in Congress, she was elected, and then only 298 women have served as U.S. representative. Mm-hmm. And now today, 100 of U.S. senators, out of the 100, only 20 of them are women. Right. And only 79 are women in the House of Members, which is 435 people. Mm-hmm. So why are there such low numbers of women elected to office at these federal and state levels? That's the question.
A great question. A multiple, complex picture of why this is the case. First is, of course, the unconscious bias that we talked about. There are still stereotypes about women's abilities and women's capacities and women's fit for leadership, especially political leadership, which tended historically to be male dominant. There are also research that has been done that have shown that women tend to have less political ambition than men, and for good reasons, of course, because when women get into leadership circles, they face a lot of challenges. Some of these challenges are the gendered expectations. So when women get into leadership, their leadership qualities or fit for leadership are questioned. They tend to be judged more harshly. They tend to be subjected to gendered expectations. So if they adopt a traditionally male style of leadership, they are judged to be, they are shunned, they are disliked. If they show gendered expectations, if they display emotions or cry, they tend to be judged as weak and not fit for political leadership. There are other challenges where they are held into double standards of competency, double threshold of competency. Women have to work a lot harder than men to achieve the same successes as men, and with less rewards. And they tend to be subjected to a lot of scrutiny in terms of their appearance, what they dress, what they wear, how they make their hair, that men are not subjected to. So a lot of deserving women and very qualified women stay away from the political arena because it is not a hospitable arena for many women.
That can go a lot of ways. And so what about the political organizations? Are political parties doing enough to recruit, and not only recruit but support these women that are candidates in political world?
Obviously, they're not doing enough, because all you have to do is look at the numbers. Women occupy 18.5% of the U.S. Congress, only 22.5% of the statewide elected office, and 24% of legislative seats nationwide. There are qualified, if women are graduating from college at the same rate as men and are participating in the labor force at the same rate as men, why is it that if this pool of talent is there, why it's not being tapped? That's the question, or tapped enough. Of course, we refer to the phenomenon of unconscious bias, or the lack of access to networks, or what we used to call the good old boys networks. It's still, women are not being tapped enough, not only for elected office, but also for appointed office, because the numbers are the same. We have not reached critical mass in many of these appointed offices. So definitely the political parties can do and should do more.
And thinking about that, developed and developing, and even some underdeveloped countries all around the world have elected women as their presidents and prime ministers and head leaders. So why, after more than 2 centuries, why haven't Americans, you think, elected a woman president?
Well, it's still a very difficult equation. I tend to not look at a woman president maybe in a very patriarchal society as an indicator of progress, because there's still widespread patriarchal norms. So the Scandinavian countries, of course, and the Nordic countries have almost achieved parity through quota system. And a quota system is not welcomed in this country for many reasons, but people have discovered that in these countries that the quota system would accelerate women's progress and accelerate women's access to political positions, and have succeeded in doing so, which led to further, the entry of women in these circles at a greater rate than the U.S. Really, the financing is also a problem that exists for women who want to run for seats, elected seats, and the system itself really is not a hospitable system for women. Women who run for office have to really work a lot harder than men to get elected.
Yeah, so that system obviously doesn't work here, but if it's effective, anywhere else, they should probably develop the same kind of, maybe not the same since I'm not too familiar with it, but, try to get women involved. It's important. So,
right.
As, the presidential race of 2016 looms, what are your thoughts on the prospects of former First Lady Hillary Clinton? I know she's a woman and she's very well known, and so do you think she has the chance to make it to the White House?
Well, it's very early to tell, but we really hope that she will. And there are currently mobilization already taking place to do that. It's very hard to tell at this stage, but hopefully there will be other candidates coming forward, and not just Hillary Clinton, other women candidates, so that we can maximize the chances that we will have a women president and break the the cycle of exclusion of women from these posts.
But an issue, thinking of bringing that in, hovering over Hillary Clinton more or less, and like you were saying before, all this discrimination, she's going to be 68 years old by the time that the presidential election rolls around. So is this tantamount to the age discrimination, and do you think it's going to play with the voters? Do you think it's going to interfere?
I think ageism is always, an issue. McCain was older than her when he ran for president. We'll tend to see the same attacks based on gender, that we've seen in the last run. So she will have a number of challenges, but she is extremely qualified and extremely well positioned to make that run.
That is true. And so we will take a quick break right now for important messages, and we'll be right back with Dr. Refki. We're back with Youth United with Dr. Dina Refki, Director of the Center of Women in Government and Civil Society at the University of Albany. So we're discussing issues that are impacting women's rise to leadership positions and the work of the center. So going back to discussion, Dr. Refki, you are the director of the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society. So before we get into specifics of your programs to build leadership skills in the women, can you give our viewers a brief overview of the work of the center?
Absolutely. So the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society is part of Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy at the University at Albany, State University of New York. And we call ourselves an academic research center with a social change agenda. And that means that makes us a lot different from other traditional research centers that only focus on research for its own sake. But the research that we do advances the work of advancing women's position in society. So we are 35 years old, actually 36 this year, and our vision is a society free of gender inequities where all men and women of all backgrounds participate equally in shaping the future. And we have 4 emphasis areas: women and leadership, economic security, health and gender-related disparities, and safety and well-being. These are the areas that we feel still a lot of work needs to be done to achieve parity, gender parity, and to make government and systems more responsive to the needs of women.
That's a great, mission that the program has, and so the center. So the Women's Leadership Academy was launched in 2010 by the center. It operates educational programs and is aimed at strengthening the women's leadership and capacity and capabilities. So can you tell us a little more about why the Academy was created?
Right. So the Academy was created as a vehicle to make sure that women have access and have opportunities to pursue public service leadership. So we created the Academy to provide women, to strengthen women's political ambition, to strengthen their skills and knowledge of leadership, and to deal with the gendered psyche and the socialization that sometimes hinder women's pursuit of leadership. And the Academy has 2 programs, and besides the educational programs that we have, we also have a research agenda that attempt to address the disparities in leadership, the unbalanced leadership that we see, and the lack of representation of women in the upper crust of leadership. And we also raise awareness about these numbers so that it is in the public discourse, and the problem is acknowledged, that a balanced representation leads to better government and better society and better democracy. So the Academy has 2 educational programs. One is the Fellowship on Women in Public Policy, and the other is New Leadership New York. The Fellowship on Women in Public Policy has been around for 31 years, and it is a program for graduate students, and it's a 6-month intensive leadership development program where women are exposed to the theories and practices of public policy leadership, and they really are positioned to pursue careers in public policy. The New Leadership New York is an undergrad program. It's a 1-week boot camp summer institute to provide young women with the leadership and skills and knowledge to pursue public service leadership, and hopefully put the seeds in their mind that running for office is for them, and to help them see themselves as candidates for elected office.
Those are both great programs, and they're both targeted toward grad students, you said?
One is graduate and one is undergrad.
That's a great program for all those women out there who really want to get into the political field. It's not as scary as you think. So how successful has the Fellowship on Women in Government been building women leaders? And talk about who's eligible to participate.
The Fellowship on Women in Public Policy, the applications are now open on our website. Any applicant who is either a graduate student who has completed 12 credit hours of coursework, or a mid-level professional who have already completed graduate student can apply. The information is all on our website, and we're accepting applications now. The fellowship runs from early January till the end of June and coincides with the legislative session. So the women who participate in the fellowship get to really see the application of public policy making and public policy implementation in Albany during the legislative session. And they do complete an academic program that gives them the theoretical basis of public policy making and implementation. The New Leadership New York is 1 week, and it runs the end of May, the beginning of June, and it's a residential program. Anyone enrolled in an undergraduate university in New York State or who has a residence in New York State but attend other colleges can also participate. You can apply around March, when we open the application door, and the accepted candidates or accepted new leaders come to Albany, to University at Albany, stay with us in the dorms for 7 days in an intensive, really, experience that runs basically from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, where they meet women in elected office, appointed office, and where they are exposed to the theories and practices of leadership and public policy making.
Kind of opens their eyes, so this is possible if you really want it to be.
Absolutely.
And your New Leadership New York, it's targeted at more the undergraduate younger women. So can you talk to us about, again, just follow up, who is eligible to participate?
Anyone who is a woman who is attending undergraduate institution in New York State, or who has a New York State residence, can apply and can be accepted into the program. I also would like to add that they do have, after they complete the program, they are eligible to apply for a mini grant from the center so that they can go back to their campuses or their communities and implement a project where they can apply the skills that they have learned. And they do apply for the grant after they graduate from the program and implement their program in the fall.
That's a great opportunity, I think, because even look at that, even if you're not even in the state, but if you have a residency, it opens it to more people, more women, that's great. And so you're a researcher, and you've collected data on many issues impacting women. So what are the most, sobering statistics that measure women's health and economic status that you think our viewers should know?
Mm-hmm. So in those 4 areas, I would go again and say, in 2014, we still have lack of representation in spite of a huge body of research that tell us you need to tap into the pool of talent, all the pool of talent you have as a society, so that you can maintain global competitiveness and you can maintain economic development and economic prosperity. You still see an unbalanced picture with the lack of representation of women in those upper crust of leadership in every sector of society, and not just in political circles. When you go to economic security, you still see a phenomenon which we call the feminization of poverty, where women bear the biggest brunt of poverty in society, and do not have equal access sometimes and equal opportunities to economic opportunities. And safety, and the area of safety and well-being, violence against women, the statistics are really sobering and are really shocking, and it really points to the fact that culturally we still have very deep-seated roots of patriarchal attitudes and norms that need to be dismantled as a society.
I understand. Yeah, again, like you said earlier, you just have to look at the numbers and that tells you everything.
Mm-hmm.
So our news and our media is constantly filled with stories and acts of violence against women abroad. And at the same time, we're seeing that women that in these developing countries are becoming more educated and increasing their labor force participation rates. So are these factors contributing to the violence against women?
The factors are the cultural norms, and the cultural norms that really ascribe superiority to men and ascribe women as property to men. of men. So these are really the roots of why violence against women is happening. And we've done research on the participation of women in the Ugandan parliament, and we found that despite political, despite the fact that you have policy frameworks enforced from above, the top down, and trying to change these cultural norms with respect to, criminalizing domestic violence and sexual assault against women, you still have the prevalence. There's still the grassroots have not been affected. The implementation of these policies are not taking root, are not effectively changing the conditions on the ground. So what needs to happen is really, in addition to having a top-down approach where the policies, you have the legal frameworks that criminalize these acts, you still have to have education and intervention of the masses and change the picture on the ground. We also found that separation of church from state is a huge issue. It needs to happen so that public policy is not made based on anyone's religion, and that is really a critical issue in moving the women's rights agenda forward.
Definitely, for sure. All these things taken into account, if pursued well enough and if enough women can get together from New York State all around the world, change can happen. So, Dr. Refki, thank you so much. This has been a really interesting discussion, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Maya. Thanks for having me.
And so, last, before we leave, where can our viewers find out more about the work on the center?
We have a website. It's on the University at Albany website, Center for Women in Government and Civil Society. And the website URL is www.albany.edu/womeningov/. So you can find out about our work.
That's great. But, that's all the time we have for today. So thank you all our viewers for joining us, and join us again for the next edition of Youth United, Working for a Better Future. I'm your host, Maya Palasa Martinez, and until then, stay well.